Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Librarian Grace, and we are starting an art class. As you read in the description, we're going to be painting Georgia O'Keeffe's calla lily painting, which is called Two Calla Lilies on Pink. And I thought that it was appropriate to do this one because it's good for spring. Flowers are in full bloom right now. And it could make a really nice gift for this weekend for Mother's Day, or just in general. It's nice to have a flower painting somewhere in your home. So, what you want to do is you want to grab the supplies that I have displayed over here. So, we've got a jar of water. I also have a backup jar as well in case the first one gets dirty, so you can grab a second one. I have a recycled piece of paper towel that I used for past art classes that I'm going to be using again to wipe off the colors from my brush. I have a palette here, and it's okay if your palette doesn't look like this. Essentially, it just needs to be something that you can put paint on and mix colors. I've got my paints, and I have a few paintbrushes. I'm probably mostly just going to be using the big one. And since I know that not everyone has different sizes, I'm going to try to cater to that. So, yeah. I also have my piece of paper. And what I did is similar to what I did a few weeks ago, where I cut it into a 5x7 side, 5x7 inches in size, so that just in case I really love it, then it can be easily framed. And it's not as big of a canvas, so it won't take as much time to finish it up. So my original piece of paper was like 11x14, and I just cut it down to 5x7. So if you would like to do that, feel free to pause the video, get a ruler, a pencil, scissors, and measure out your piece of paper to the desired frame size, 4x6 or 5x7. And you can press play again when you're ready to start painting. At any point, you can press pause. And then afterwards, if you miss anything, we're going to be posting the video onto our page so that you can access it later, just in case. All right, but we're going to be going pretty fast since, I know all of you are pretty busy and we don't want this video to go too long. Last time I lost track of time and I completely went over 30 minutes. I went like over an hour. So I'm going to try to avoid that from happening this time. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. And if you want to pull up a picture of this on Google Images, you're welcome to do so that you have something to look at up close. And again, it's called Two Calla Lilies on Pink. And it is by Georgia O'Keeffe. All right. And hello, Yosan. Hello, Allison and Delilah. Thank you so much for joining. Feel free to ask any questions on the comments or to share your progress as well. Share how it's going. Give some feedback, and then we'll know how to make our art programs better for the future. All right, so I've got my paintbrush here. And I have my colors. What I'm going to be doing first is getting my white. So I've got my white here. And I'm going to be putting a bunch of white onto my palette. And I'm also going to need some pink. So I'm going to be getting some red. so that I can mix it in with the white to make pink. Also going to need some yellow. So I've got my yellow here. And that's going to be for this part of the flower. I'm going to put that on my palette. And we will eventually need some green as well. If you don't have all the same colors as I do, that's totally fine. You can always ask questions in the comments about how to make a certain color that you might not have in your stash of paints. So I'm just doing that to get started, getting some of the paints ready. All right. Make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you've got a glass of water, maybe a little snack on the side, so that this can be the most enjoyable painting experience for you. Okay, so I'm going to try to include this in the camera. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to maybe do a really light wash of pink onto the canvas that we have here. So I'm going to get some of this white, maybe a lot of this white actually. And then I'm going to make some pink with it. So I'm going to get a little bit of red, just a little bit, start off small and mix it in with the white. Okay, maybe I need a little bit more of that red to make it more vibrant. Okay, and then with another paintbrush or with the same paintbrush, it doesn't matter. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow and put it off to the side here, and then try to mix that in so that it becomes more of a pale peachy pink. So I'm going to start off like that. I'm going to make my brush really wet, really, really wet, because we're just doing a light wash. Like this. It's ideal to have a really big brush for this, but you make do with what you have, because I don't have a big brush on hand. All right, and I'm going to leave some parts of it blank because looking at my photo, I'm not going to really need a lot of the pink on the middle section here. So I'm just going to get all these four corners. And then we can fill them in later with more saturated pink as we go. You can probably hear the sounds of the neighborhood outside. That's a siren in the background. All right, so I've got a wash going just for the skeleton. And your paper is going to curl, and that's totally fine. Sometimes, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but it helps me. I just curl it back and do that occasionally as it starts to curl again. All right. Okay, so there we go. Next, I'm going to wash my brush off, get all the paint off of my brush. I'm going to make sure that that's all clean, and it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab a whole bunch of white. Your paper should be relatively dry enough to paint over right now. If it's not, you can wait a few seconds. I'm just going to go for it and see how this goes on. And I'm going to do the outline of my calla lily, my first calla lily on top. Here we go. It's gonna come downwards like this, and it really does not have to be perfect because this is your own creation. We might be copying a famous artwork by Georgia O'Keeffe, but in the end, we are the artists and we can decide how big we want our calla lily to be. All right, you have full agency over your painting today. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring this curve down, and it's hard to see from the camera, I'm sure, but I'm just doing the bottom edge of the calla lily that's on top here. I'm doing the side edge. Okay. And I'm gonna add some water to my paintbrush and kind of just spread that around once I have the general shape of the first calla lily on top. All right. So this is really fun, just filling in the color here. We're gonna put all the details in soon enough. Oh, that was the sound of my refrigerator. It's really loud. Sorry about that. Okay. And it's okay if it's not super neat. It doesn't have to be super neat right now because we're just doing sort of the background, getting those colors in. All right, so that's our first calla lily. You can't really see much of it yet, but it's gonna come together, I promise. All right, now we're gonna do the second calla lily, which is on the bottom of the page. So starting from maybe around the halfway point right here, I'm going to draw this top edge of the second calla lily. I'm going to define the bottom edge right here, leaving some of the corner exposed. I'm going to fill that in with white. And again, I'm going kind of fast, so I apologize for that. I'm on a time limit here, but you guys have more time to spend on your paintings, so you can feel free to pause at any point and make sure that you get all the steps in. All right, I'm going to define the edges of the right side of the calla lily. It's hard to see what I'm doing, but trying to narrate which step I'm on. So doing the bottom right and the right, basically the right side of the second calla lily on the bottom. And I'm going to fill it in with white. And just keep filling it in. Make that a little easier to see. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce the edges of the calla lilies because it's kind of hard to see them right now. And I'm going to make a light gray color by actually getting some of my black, just a teeny tiny, tiny little speck of black right over here. And I'm going to mix it with some white, maybe with a different brush if you have it. And just get a little bit of that white, or sorry, a little bit of that black with some white, making a nice gray color. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to mark the edges of my calla lily in certain spots, like the top right, and make my brush a little more wet because, ooh, and I made that really dark. That's okay. Just keep going. We do a really thin line just to mark the edge of my calla lily. I'm going to do the same over here on this side. Maybe on the top edge right here. And I'm going to also do that right over here. And right over here. And mine doesn't look exactly like Georgia's, and that's totally fine. I'm making my own edges for my calla lilies. Okay, then here we've got some gray marks, more gray marks on the bottom right, and bottom left. And there we go. The next thing that I'm going to do is you can see that there's more gray inside the calla lilies. So I'm going to make those lines as well. Starting from right over here. Yeah, your painting might not be completely dry, and that's totally fine. It's going to help anyway because you're going to be mixing it in and it won't look as harsh because it's going to be blended with your paint that's still wet. I'm going to take more of this gray color and I'm going to make another line right on this edge here. I'm going to create some more shadows and shading. Pay attention to your strokes. Some of them are going to be really thin, like the one that I'm doing right now, and some of them are going to be thicker. Like this one's probably going to be really thin. And some of them are going to be darker than others. This is really light, so I made it more transparent looking with some water. Okay, I'm going to reinforce what I just did with some lighter shading. And what I did was I just wet my brush to make it more transparent. I'm going to blend things in a bit. And blend that in. Blend that in. Make some new lines. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom calla lily. So Going to get some more gray. I'm going to make these defining lines of the flower petal. All right. Use sketchy strokes so that you have a little more control over your lines. We're going to keep going with that because there's quite a lot of shading that Georgia did on this painting. She was quite a master of shading. All right, continue with that. And so we've got sort of the bare bones of the shading on our, not orchid, calla lily. And I'm going to reinforce what I just did again by wetting my brush, making my gray a lot more translucent, and just reinforce those lines once more. Try to make it look a little bit more smooth. Yeah, I really don't know how she got her lines to be that smooth. She was really gifted. But I'm kind of going for the rough look anyway, so it makes me feel a little better about what I'm doing on my piece of paper. All right, just reinforcing those lines once more. See, they become a little bit more blended as you do that, which looks smoother. All right, there we go. Okay, next, I'm going to take my white again, and I'm going to add just a lot more white to the calla lilies so that they look more filled in, because I did a really fast job with that earlier. Because they look a little bit tainted with pink because of the background still. So I want it to be more white. And it's okay if you're going over your lines, that's fine. Kind of makes it a little bit more organic anyway. And I'm using acrylic paint, and she used oil, I believe, for this. So it just looks different because of the different medium. And so it does not have to look exactly like hers. But yeah, if you like the result of your painting, you can frame it. You can gift it to somebody. You can hang it on your wall. You can make it into a card by writing a note on the other side, or a postcard. And there's so many things that you can do with things that you made yourself. So yeah, I'm just making everything look more white on the flower petal. All right. Okay. We're almost on to the next part. Just going to make sure that it's to my liking here. All right. There we go. Okay. I think we're ready for the next part, which is the, I forgot what this yellow thing is called. I forgot. It's something that starts with an S. I know that. But yeah, if you know, which you probably do, you can comment to that word and that would be helpful. All right, so I'm going to clean my brush and make sure it's got all the white out. I'm going to grab some of this yellow. And I like how bright this yellow is, so I'm not going to really worry about changing the color. I like how this yellow is super bright, and we're just going to directly get that color with the color the paint came in. And I'm going to very carefully draw the shape. Let's see if anyone commented with that name. Okay, nobody did. This yellow thing that starts with an S, I believe. All right, so we're gonna do that. Whenever I'm guesstimating the shape of something, I go small first. Oh, the yellow part is this spadix. All right, thank you. Yeah, I like to go small first, and then I make it bigger as I get more confident about the shape. There it is. That's pretty decent. Make sure to compliment your work every once in a while. Just take a look at it and be like, that looks really good. I did a good job on that. Okay, then for the next one, we are going to, again, start small, just in case we don't like the shape and have to change it. And then we eventually work it up to the size that we want. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Sometimes paint doesn't go on very smoothly, and that can be annoying. I just like to add more water. Okay, there we go. So we've got the spadix on. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And, you know, keep fussing with the shape if you think it's not quite accurate. And there. So from there, we're going to add some more shading around it because it's basically like a hole that the spadix is coming out of. So we want to make sure that we get that depth that's going inside of the calla lily flower. And how I'm going to achieve that is there's some yellow that's being reflected from the spadix onto the white petal. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a yellow wash and make sure that my yellow isn't as saturated as it was before. So I'm going to dip it in some water, test it out on some scratch paper, and I'm going to do a little bit of a wash like this, like that. Do a little bit of a wash here as well. And around it like that. Okay, then I'm going to use that as a base for the shading that's going to go on top of that, which is sort of that greenish color. It's not this kind of green, so this is super like Kelly green almost. It's not going to be Kelly green, so we're going to mix it with, I'm going to try mixing it with some black that I didn't use from before. Make it a little darker. Oh, the spadix appears to be specific to calla lily. Other similar parts of other flowers are the stamen. Yes, the stamen was what I was thinking of. Okay, thank you. This is turning out to be a science lesson as well. So I'm adding some yellow into this mix because I made it too dark with the black. Now it looks a little bit more foresty, but it's not quite to my liking. So it requires a lot of patience to mix colors, to be really precise about that. Okay, I'm gonna grab a little bit of this brown and gonna mix it in to make it more olive colored. Oh, that was too much brown, so I'm gonna put some more green in there and some more yellow in the, ooh, I like the color that's appearing here better than that color. So there we go. So what I did was I grabbed some green, mixed it with some brown and some yellow so that it becomes a little bit more mossy and olive toned. And I'm gonna, since this is shading, we're gonna have to get a lot of that paint that we just mixed off of our brush by mixing it into the water. Uh-oh, I'm past 30 minutes already. It's okay, we're almost there. Almost there, you guys. Thanks for hanging in there. And I'm gonna make it translucent by putting more water onto my brush, testing it out a bit, and I'm going to go ahead with the shading. I'm already unhappy with it, but that is okay. That's okay, because we can always fix it. What I like about paint is that you can just go over it again with some white and then start over. But, you know, you just have to have some patience too, because if it doesn't turn out the way you like, sometimes if you just keep going, it gets better. Or maybe you just get more used to how it looks. I don't know. Okay, that's sort of okay. It was mixing in with the white. That's what was happening. So I'm going to grab some brown actually to darken that up. It kind of worked a little bit. Ideally, you would be pausing the video and taking your time. Unlike me, I'm going very fast. All right, then there's a little bit of that same shade on this side of the calla lily. I'm going to connect that over. And sort of the same shade on this mark here. And again, I have too much paint on my brush, so I'm going to grab some water. And there it is. All right, that looks okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my other calla lily right here. Grab some of that green again. And we are going, add more water. Not too much water, just a little more water. Mix it in with that yellow that we had from earlier. And again, too much paint on my brush. This is pretty tricky. A lot of people say that abstract art is really easy, but the more I experiment, the more I realize it's actually kind of hard. All right. There we go. So that's not perfect, but you can always work on it later by adding some more shading and maybe like a more beige color, especially in the middle where the space is coming out. That would be helpful. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the stem. And I'm going to wash my brush off. Make sure that everything is coming off. Oh, I said that I was going to be eco-friendly and use my paper towel from last time, but I've been using new paper towels. But that's okay. I can save the new paper towels for next time as well. Okay, so I'm going to do the stem, which I'm going to take some of that same green, maybe add a little bit more of that Kelly green over here. And maybe a little bit of that brown mixed with more yellow. Man, mixing colors is tough. So if you are doing this, you should pat yourself on the back because it's really tough to get the right color. Okay, now we're just going to do the stem over here. And it's going to go all the way to the other side of the calla lily. Okay, you see that there's, oh, I should hold it up so you can see. Right over here is where the petal starts to curve out, and we're going to try to accomplish that. I'm going to add some more green to the bottom of this area here. I'm going to add some more of that darker green color to the edges. The right side of the stem over here. And ideally you want to kind of ombre that. So make sure that it smoothly blends in, which you could do with more water on your brush too. Get a little bit more water there. And it's not perfect, but that's all right. Just gonna grab some more of that bright green, and I'm going to create the line like that. I'm gonna bring that line, extend it up. Then it's getting more tricky. We can do this. Okay, so I'm gonna clean my brush off. Clean my brush off, and I get some more of this white. Might be kind of dried up by now, so I'm gonna re-moisturize that white from the beginning, and I'm going to add white over here. Since it's wet right now, I'm going to leave it, and then I'm going to move on to the stems on the bottom. That's a really dark green. really, really dark green, which is kind of what I made earlier. So what you can do is take your green, you mix yellow and blue if you don't have green, and then add some brown to it. Add a little bit of black, maybe. Maybe that will darken it up. Okay, so we've got this dark green. Let me test it out. That looks pretty good. Then we're going to create the stem. Stem number 1 and stem number 2. All right, there we go. So that is the baseline of everything. I obviously still need to do a lot of work, but I'm going to skip the touch-ups for the sake of time. And then I'm going to show you maybe some things that you can do for the pink background to make it more vivid and lifelike. So again, we're going to make that pink, but a darker pink than before, because before we just did a wash. I don't really like this pink. Ooh, I kind of like it without mixing anything. So yeah, that color looks pretty good right here. If you want to see right like that. Actually, no, that looks too purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some yellow, add it to that pink. I think that's pretty good. And I'm going to test that out again. Oh, it looks the same as before. This is tricky. Wonder how I can make this pink better. Maybe using some white with it will help. Okay. If you can make a more vibrant looking pink, that would be great for the painting. But if not, you work with what you have. Okay. Here we go. I'm just going to go for it, you guys. Okay. All right. So I'm going to add some darker pink to the background. And I'm going to do that like that. Ooh, that's not a pretty pink. You guys can do better. Yeah. Okay. That might be a little better. And we're going to just add more of those strokes. To the background. I'm going to try to blend it a little bit. And again, like this. Sometimes I like to use my finger to kind of blend things a little bit more. Otherwise, I just get more water and I make it look more translucent. And there we go. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. Sorry about that. Okay. There we are. This is turning out to be very, very abstract, much more than Georgia's painting. All right. And just keep adding those strokes. Let's see if I missed any. There. Okay. So it doesn't really look like hers, but especially if you look at it up close. Yeah. What I would do, since I have to end this video soon, I'm just going to tell you what my next plan is. So I would probably add more shading to the overall flower. Probably try to mix things in a little better because right now it's very bare bones. Then I would add more pink to the background so that it doesn't look as white as it does right now. Um, then I would reinforce this part here so that people can tell that this is where the leaf, or sorry, the petal is curling out, just like she has on her painting, that spot over there. All right. Well, that's what I came up with in 47 minutes. I'm so glad that you could all join me, and I hope that you can share some of your creations with me. I would love to see. I'm sure they're all beautiful. If you liked how it turned out, make sure to give it to someone, hang it up on your wall, frame it, whatever it might be. Thank you so much for joining me today for flower painting in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.